Hello, class. Lyndon Johnson is the last person who could have theoretically served a third term as President of the United States. So Lyndon Johnson will be born August 27th, 1908, and he is going to die January 22nd, 1973, at the age of 64. As of this recording, he is the last Democratic president to die. His home state is Texas. No matter religion, he was part of the Disciples of Christ. So his first lady is going to be a woman called Claudia, but no one's going to call her Claudia. They're going to call her Lady Bird Johnson. So Lyndon Johnson is going to be a Democrat. When he's growing up, Texas is basically a one-party state, and that is the Democratic Party. So if you want to get anywhere in politics, you have to be a Democrat in Texas. So that's where he's going to get his start in politics. So his term of office is going to be from November 22nd, 1963 to January 20th, 1969. And when he immediately takes the presidency, he actually doesn't have a vice president. The 25th Amendment hasn't been passed, so there's no way to actually replace them mid-term. But once he is reelected, he's going to have Hubert Humphrey as his vice president. So Lyndon Johnson is going to go to college to get a degree to teach high school. And he is going to be teaching high school social studies. And this is going to set him up for his entire life, because when he first starts, he's going through a government program. He took a job in rural Texas, and he's seeing students in deep poverty that have no chance of ever making it to college the way that he does. So him seeing the poor children in Texas the way that he saw them is going to influence his whole life. So he is going to get elected in the 1930s to the House of Representatives out of Texas. And so he is going to be a sitting member of Congress when World War II breaks out. And so during World War II, he is going to temporarily join back to the military. And so he's going to set aside his duties as a member of Congress and fight during World War II, right? Which did not hurt his chances of getting reelected. Right? After the war is over, he is going to be elected as senator of Texas, and he's going to become the Senate Majority Leader. Right? He is very well known for his ability to get things passed and to use negotiation tactics that go to the point of bullying to get stuff done. He was a very tall individual, and a way of just looking down at you from his height to demand things. So he is going to, in 1960, become JFK's running mate. This is a way of balancing the ticket, right? We had a northern liberal Catholic, right? Now you have a southern Protestant, more moderate. Label it there. Right? And him and JFK didn't have the greatest relationship. Right? Though he was pretty upset when President Kennedy was shot and killed, which meant that quite suddenly Lyndon Johnson was president of the United States. And so there's a lot of mourning that's going on. Lyndon Johnson's a politician. He understands that there is political capital that he has as a new president, and he plans to use it. So he is going to use the aftermath of the Kennedy assassination to finally act on civil rights. So in 1964, he's going to pass the Civil Rights Act out of Congress, opposing some members of his own party on this, that is going to ensure civil rights for African Americans in the South. He will follow this up with the Voting Rights Act the next year, that are going to try to undo some of those Jim Crow voter suppression tactics that were happening in the South as well. Now, Lyndon Johnson was a man of personal prejudice. And you wouldn't want to hear the type of language he used to describe other races. But he understood the need for change in the country, and he pursued it. Right? 1948 is the year that both the Democrats and the Republicans put in their party platform civil rights. But it's under Lyndon Johnson that this finally gets done. So in 1964, he runs for re-election and wins in a landslide against Barry Goldwater. Lyndon Johnson's other domestic thing that he wanted to do was the Great Society. Is that he wanted to have more social programs to help more people. And a lot of these things are going to get passed. This goes in tandem with his war on poverty. Right? Having someone that witnessed poverty up close, he wanted to help more people. So this is where Medicare and Medicaid are going to come out of. Right? Where we don't go to universal health care, but you have health care for the elderly and for those that are severely financially distressed. Right? He's going to be there, give Harry Truman the first Medicare card. They have all these programs to try to get rid of poverty. Say this is the government's problem, and it's a moral failing if we don't do this. Done. Tons of programs there. One of which is going to provide the grant money to create a show called Sesame Street. That is still airing today, whose original premise was to help underprivileged inner city youth have an educational program that could relate to them. So, lots of positives that were happening on the domestic front. However, he escalated the war in Vietnam. Right? Our history in Vietnam is quite complicated. We've had several presidents in a row that had escalated it, but it is with Lyndon Johnson that America starts viewing this as a war, America's war, where people are going to start getting drafted. We're going to have people protesting, riots over the draft. And this is going to divide his own party. So, the way that the 22nd Amendment works, that is the one that gives term limits. You are allowed to seek a third term if you served less than a full amount in one of your other terms. So, when he becomes president, it is over halfway through JFK's term. So, he is able to possibly run for a third term. And he put some feelers out there in 1968. But he is unpopular within his own party because of Vietnam, which is dividing people. So he ends up not running. The person that gets the nomination is his own vice president, who ends up losing. And then, just a few years later, Lyndon Johnson dies. So he was the last person that had the potential to run for that third term. It's not clear who would have won that election if Lyndon Johnson had decided to go for that term. But he's an interesting character because he is someone who spent so much time when he was president helping those less fortunate than him, as well as trying to bring racial equality to the country, while at the same time dealing with personal prejudices and escalating the United States conflicts abroad. All right, so that was Lyndon Johnson. Next time we'll talk about Richard Nixon.